Alright guys, this is another planting day video. I'm down to the final section of the food plot, and you can see the greenery in the background is now feeding deer. So I'm going to fix this zone here, which is just absolutely full of weeds. I tried to wait as long as possible for that crimson to ripen up. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing it for me. Trying to be greedy and get some free seed out of that, and that will lay dormant during the summer and sprout during the fall time. So I'm just trying to get some extra seed, and if it doesn't make it, that's no big deal, because I have more crimson clover I can replace it with. But this area here is in serious need of help. I've already limed this over a month ago, and I can tell the lime is working because all the weeds really greened up and started taking off. So the pH level's back to where it needs to be, and now it's just putting in new species in here and trying to introduce more variety of plants in here. And I'm going to do a major tonnage upgrade over my clover food plot. And I want to explain how I'm going to achieve that, because clover is such a high tolerant browse plant. It takes quite a few deer to knock it down. And if I'm replacing it with something I think's better, it's basically down to visualization. Clover, depending on which type you plant, only can grow so tall. If you've got crimson clover, super healthy ground, you can get 3 feet out of it. Now, on average, you're probably going to get about 2 feet, and that's considered a healthy stand of crimson clover. The red top clover, some people call it purple top because it doesn't look red, it's purple, grows about to the same height. Now, if you're planting pure stands of white clover or ladino, you're only going to gain about, the deepest I've ever had it here was 16 inches. And 2 foot tall seed heads. That is the biggest ladino I've ever had in here. So I've got a limit on how tall that clover is going to grow. I'm going to replace this with joint vetch, or some people say deer vetch. It goes under several names. It's not common vetch, it's a different version of vetch. This is basically a super browse tolerant plant that can grow 6 feet tall. So I'm doubling my food production minimum just based on height. So I'm actually packing more food in here at various levels because of the vetch. I'm also going to put in okra to get that deep taproot to pull deeper nutrients out of the soil and bring them up to the top of the soil. I'm going to probably add some sun hemp in here to make sure there's no ugly fungus or bad bacteria in here. I'm not going to plant it real thick. It's just going to be a light mix of sun hemp. Try to get this soil, kick it into gear, and then when fall comes, sow this in a solid clover plot. I at least want one spot in here to where deer's not walking through a jungle to get to food, and they tend to really favor this low dip right here because you can't see the neighbors when that food plot's up. So they stay in here in the fall and winter, and at nighttime they're ravaging my soybean. So that's my goal, and I'll show you what I'm going to plant just for an overview. Now remember, you don't have to do the strategy I'm doing. Everybody has different needs, different goals. I'm just doing this for me. And one of the tips I will give out that I think might be beneficial to you, depending on what style of food plotting you do, I never till the entire plot up. And the reason I do that is because if you think when you're planting your seed out, how long is it going to take that seed to start producing enough food to feed your deer? Is it going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? That little time frame right there where there's no food, to me, is a mistake. Your deer's going to start moving downhill again because they're having to reduce themselves to eating lower quality food, unless you have some sort of savanna habitat or maybe a clover plot somewhere else that can handle the deer moving into that area. But I only have this one plot plus the woods, and I don't want to till everything up and my deer show up and there's no high quality food in here. There's clover in here. It's just underneath that, all those weeds. And they've been in here at night and late in the evenings eating at the clover, but now the soybean and buckwheat is kicked in and they have quit hitting my clover. So you can see some of that ladino right there. And that's why I'm keeping everything in a cycle to where there's no food gap missing between my deer. This will help keep your deer larger and healthier, especially that does are carrying fawns. This is the critical time of year. If you want to build a big buck, you need to really help your does out. And when they start producing those nice healthy babies, you're going to get those big healthy bucks. So let's go over this right here real quick. I'm bringing this soybean in here to fill in groundhog damage. I have been vigorously hunting some groundhogs and I have killed 2, and there are 2 more to kill. So I'm going to replant the damage they've caused with that soybean. So that's not going to be set out in my clover area, at least for now. This is the most expensive seed I have ever purchased. This is that joint deer vetch. I will do a video on pros and cons of deer vetch. This is my first year planting it. I've done some research on it, and this to me is a highly beneficial plant to put in your food plot. I think vetch is underused, but it's because of the price. Just so you know, this bag right here is a 50-pound bag of vetch, and it cost me $320. It is expensive, guys. I only bought 1 bag. I don't have a giant plot to where I need multiple bags of this. So if you're in a climate to where you can let this reseed, probably very beneficial for you to save money if you allow it to reseed. All right, so these are not part of my workings in the food plot out here. These are thornless blackberries. I've started planting these to give the deer more native species to handle, but these are modified and there's no thorns on them, so I can rake my hand all across through there and not get hit by thorns. This is also more beneficial to deer. When they're eating these, I've noticed they've eaten more of the stem than they would a thorned blackberry. So I'm introducing as many of these as I can up near the island and put a ring of blackberries that have no thorns in them, so you can wade right through them and not have any issues. That's pretty cool. All right, here's my sun hemp. This bag's getting close to being done. I've had it now for 3 years. Still works great. And this is my okra, if you want to know what species I'm setting out. So that's something you can look up if you want to. And always pay attention to your germination rate. That's how I determine how I sow. This has a very high rate, so I generally back off on how much I set out. And then down here, buckwheat. The reason I brought buckwheat up here is to help improve the soil, but you need something to help this deer vetch along because it grows very slow the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then it takes off like crazy. So you don't want deer destroying this and giving it no time whatsoever to sprout and grow. So I put a companion crop of buckwheat in here to help hide and cover some of this, and I get the benefit of soil improvement. So eventually this plot here will be a growing machine. And there's one thing of note. I'm going to do this for my own documentation here real quick while I'm filming this. I want to look at the crimson clover. So I'm basing this on height, and that's just shy, well, if it stood upright, we're going to say knee deep. This crimson clover on average grew knee deep or less. So that's right about knee. I've got some chicory here the deer's going to start devouring here at any time. But overall, the crimson clover did not grow with big leaves. It just kind of stemmed out and headed out, and that was the end of it. The crimson clover that's up there, probably 10 inches deep at its deepest point, averaging about 8. So that's just a little something to keep in, that I'm going to keep track of, and we're going to see how much taller and bigger and more tonnage I produce out of this. So very short. That's about typically what you see out of Ladino, and I'm going to try to get more out of this ground. All right, guys, that's the end of this. I'm going to till all this down and start my planting process. So you all have a good day and good luck with your food plots. And oh, if you're a YouTube member or like this content, hit that like and subscribe button, and hopefully I'll bring some more halfway decent videos for you, and we'll see, we can learn and grow and see what mistakes happen. Have a good one.